Okay, I would like to call council meeting number 9 for March 7, 2023 to order. And my name is Mayor Ron Paull, and I'd like to recognize that we meet on the traditional territory of the LHTAKO DENE Nation. I'd like to mention first that we do have Councillor Lorianne Rudenberg and Councillor Scott Elliott zooming in virtually. So we've got a full house in the gallery, and we've got a full house here at the council table. I'd like to note that we're going to have a couple little changes to the agenda. Item K1 there, and K1 is K1 is the administration report on the Quesnel Downtown Association, and there's a late attachment regarding K1. And there's also item number M1, which is some late correspondence from the Quesnel Pride Society, and we're actually going to move that piece of correspondence up to deal with it during the Quesnel Pride Society delegation, which will be coming up momentarily. At this time, I'd like to, I'd like to get a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please. Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Vick, any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we've got that out of the way. Now we look for a motion to adopt the regular minutes of the regular council meeting held February 21, 2023, as circulated. Councillor Goulet. Oh, Councillor, sorry, I got it there. Councillor Scott Elliott. I'm sorry, I thought it was Lorianne there for a minute. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, before we move to delegations, I have spoken to Tammy, Janzen, the Executive Director of the Quesnel Shelter and Support Society, and Tammy has graciously agreed to have the delegation order flipped so that we deal with the Quesnel Pride Society first. Happy to see that we've got such a full house. We almost needed the arena for today's meeting, so thanks for showing up. So, Alison, are you ready to go with your presentation?
I am.
So if you could just come up to the microphone and away you go. And we do have your late item agenda or correspondence on the agenda, and we will deal with that as soon as you've concluded your presentation. The floor is yours.
I'm Alison, Prentice, President of the Quesnel Pride Society, and I have with me Julia Dillebow, our VP, and I'd like to thank the Mayor and Council for letting us come and present to you a quick presentation on what it is the Pride Society does in Quesnel, and then we have some action items that we would like to bring to Council that Julia is going to cover. So I'm going to go through mine a little bit quicker than usual, just so that Julia has time to go through hers. So the first, now, I don't know, where's you seen the slides? Are you seeing them down here? Okay. So this first slide is our mission statement, and it's a very important one. It says that we won't stop until every queer child, youth, and adult feels safe in our community. We do more than parades and a party, although we sure had good ones this last couple of years. It's been a lot of fun. Why do we do parades and parties? Well, we do parades. They started as a protest, and they still are. They're a celebration of how far we've come, and the community's resilience in the face of a lot of things going on in the world today, but they still are a protest. The after party, we have parties because it's a secure, safe place for our queer community to let loose and have some fun. And this is especially important in remote areas because we don't have the queer district or the queer cafes or the restaurants or the nightclubs that larger urban centers do. And this year's theme for the parade is Say My Chosen Name, and that's in support of our trans community members who face these micro and macro aggressions almost daily. People deliberately misusing pronouns, misusing or using dead names instead of their chosen names. So that's our theme this year is Say My Chosen Name. A list of accomplishments that we did over the last, I guess, 18 months now. We did the first ever formal survey of the queer community in the Cariboo region, the entire Cariboo region. And I'm going to go over just a few of those results. We did a successful pilot program for subsidized counseling for queer youth, and that's now a full program with the society. That's funded by a $10,000 grant from Transcare BC. We've successfully been fundraising for pride events that include the youth barbecue, the volunteer barbecue, the parade, the DJ in the park, and the after party for the 19 and over. We were able to issue 2 Rainbow Awards this past year. Those are $500 awards that are given to high school students. We have an application in for a community gaming grant to help us expand our subsidized counseling program. We've implemented a membership program, and that shows grant selection committees that we do have support from the communities, so we're gradually increasing that membership. We're in the news a lot, and I want us to be in the news as often as possible, because if we have people in the news and we have stories about what we're doing in the news, then we can face the issues that are coming up. If we don't say anything, if we don't do anything, then nothing gets changed. So my goal is to always keep us in the news. Our website is expanded regularly. It's updated regularly. I had a school district, school superintendent meeting because there are a lot of issues in School District 28. We do a workshop, a 1-hour workshop at UNBC for healthcare students. I've done it for nurses. I've done it for healthcare aides. We have an Intro to Queer Minds presentation that we give for nursing students. This quote here, this one is the best quote that I have from last year, that I don't think many people fully understand what's happening now. The level of hatred the LGBTQ community is facing is historically significant. It's the worst many of us have seen in our lifetimes. And although this was a quote from the US, it's happening here in Canada too. These are 2022 Canadian headlines. That was in Delta about the Pride flagpole vandalism. There was a Pride flag theft. That was a rural community east of London. Victoria drag show cancelled after threat of gun violence. This was a homophobic assault in Nanaimo. Libraries in Canada hit by a wave of hate and threats. Right-wing groups protesting all aged drag events. And then this was our most recent hate flyer that was distributed here in Quesnel. It was placed on over 60 vehicles. It was distributed to businesses in the downtown, and it was attacking our MC for the party coming up this summer. Very, very disturbing. From the survey, I just want to go over some of our top results that we had. And the big results is that life is challenging in Quesnel for our queer community. That survey, we did reach the confidence level, which means that if we did the same survey over and over, we'd get similar results. Not unlike the wider national stats, half the people in our survey had been subject of homophobic jokes or slurs in the 12 months prior to the survey. 25% had been threatened. 4% had been physically assaulted. And 37% had been rejected by family and friends. Now, this to me is the worst statistic, and I'm going to share a quick personal story here, because this statistic needs to change. Our family should have been the perfect family for a child to come out as gay. Unfortunately, our son's bio father, when he was told that our son was gay, disowned him. And our son tried to talk with him for a week over and over, and he refused to talk, says, "Nope, you're not my son. I want nothing to do with you." And at the end of a week, he hung himself. He was 24 years old. This has to change. If your child is gay, don't close the door. You may not understand it. If they come out to you, don't close the door, because that door can be closed permanently, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So our Pride theme last year, in 2022, we are not invisible. I want to make sure that Pride is very visible here in Quesnel. What do we do as a Pride Society? Well, we did the survey of the queer community to identify the priority needs. We fight homophobia. We respond in print and in interviews. We stand up against bullying. We stand up against the normalization of hatred in our community. And unfortunately, there's been a real trend of normalization of hatred against the LGBTQ plus community, both in the States and here. And a lot of the rhetoric from the States is now infecting Canadian social media. We create awareness in the community about queer matters. We provide the subsidized counseling for queer youth and young adults, and we want to expand that into families. We're still working on getting additional grants for that. We're in the process of creating secure online spaces for peer-to-peer supports. We brought the first PFLAG chapter here, another first in the entire Cariboo region. There's no other PFLAG chapter here in the Cariboo. We're in the process of creating regular safe space activities for children and their allies, like monthly game nights, and we fundraise, and of course, put on a good parade and a party. So we do a lot, and not everybody understands what it is that we do, so I would encourage people to please check out our website on a regular basis where we post events. And on that note, I'm going to pass this over to Julia so that she can speak to you about the action items that we'd like to see.
Thank you very much, Alison. You got it? Got everybody can hear me? Also, I just want to state, Alison, you've done a lot for the Pride community, and I just want to start by publicly thanking you. So, most importantly, thank you guys for all the councillor members, Mayor, for having us here today. It's very important for this conversation to be had. And so first off, I appreciate the productive and cooperative relationship that we've had with the City of Quesnel as a Pride Society and Council since 2015. It's our sincere hope that this positive relationship will continue, and that with our collaborative leadership, Quesnel will stay safe and welcoming for everyone. In particular, we aspire to make Quesnel a safe place for members of the 2S LGBTQIA+ community, for both residents and visitors alike. We would like for the Council to affirm today, by way of formal resolution, that the City will continue to support the following: the ongoing maintenance of the Rainbow Crosswalk, the flying of the Pride flag on the community flagpole during Pride Month, the enabling of the Quesnel Pride Society during Pride Week events, including the parade and the celebration in Labordi Park. Further to those, I would like to state what hate speech is, because I think this is a really important conversation. And I think the rest of everybody behind me as well thinks so too. From the Office of the BC Human Rights Commissioner, hate speech comes in many forms. It can include hatred rooted in racism, including anti-Black, anti-Asian, anti-Indigenous racism, misogyny, homophobia, transphobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and white supremacy. Both Canada Criminal Code and the BC Human Rights Code describes hate speech as having three main parts. It is expressed in a public way, or in a public place. It targets a person or group of people with a protected characteristic, such as race, religion, or sexual orientation. It uses extreme language to express hatred towards that person or a group of people because of their protected characteristics. Hate speech uses extreme language to describe targeted groups that is likely to expose them as detestation, vilification. Here are a few examples of hate speech. Describing a group member as an animal, subhuman, or genetically inferior. Suggesting group members are behind a conspiracy to gain control of plotting to destroy Western civilization. Denying, minimizing, or celebrating past persecutions or tragedies that happened to group members. Blaming group members for problems like crime and disease. Calling group members liars, cheats, criminals, or any other term to provoke strong reactions. Labeling group members as child abusers, pedophiles, or criminals who prey on children. On the night of the Quesnel Hospice Gala, where you and I shook hands, Honorable Mayor, and had a great time, I went out to my vehicle to find such hate speech. My partner and I then collected over 60 flyers, such as these ones that I hold up, suggesting that a Pride member be a pedophile. And on top of that, something that hasn't been even discussed or brought up yet today, is that there's flyers of Stop Critical Race Theory being handed out also in our community. Diversity. Diversity is what we need in our community, not defaming. Hate speech is not limited to the types of negative words in these examples, but these examples show disgusting and extreme speech and how extreme it has to be considered for hate speech. Hate speech is more than offensive or hurtful. It is harmful to those who are targeted, to society at large. Hate speech tries to delegitimize and dehumanize the people who are targeted in the eyes of society. People who are victims of hate speech can often feel traumatized, excluded, unsafe, angry, or sad. It may make them so uncomfortable that they do not feel welcome in their communities or in their families. In light of the recent events in the city where a queer individual was targeted and defamed, we respectfully request that Council pass a motion condemning hate speech in all its forms, and that the city bylaw officers receive training to recognize hate speech and be equipped to assist our society and others to remove posters, flyers, and public displays of hate speech anywhere it is posted in the city. Once again, we've appreciated the relationship that we've had with the city and council to date, and we would hope that you affirm by what we've requested here today that this relationship will hold strong. Thank you.
I'm going to I want to give you just one more example that was brought to my attention, and this is something that was recent and again in response to another drag event or drag show in town. And I'm going to not read the whole thing, but partially read it. If you're going to put up, still shut up, don't let them know the attack is coming. Let it be a surprise. This is directed to our queer community, and we can't have this kind of hatred in town, and we can't have this kind of action go unanswered in the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alison and Julia. I must say that the significance and the importance and the urgency of your message is abundantly evident with a full gallery here tonight. I kind of wish that we could get a full gallery out for when we discuss budget. You guys are doing great. As far as the motion is concerned, I'd like to suggest to council that we get a motion on the table for the first 3 points that are outlined in the letter, and that there be a fourth point added to that list to condemn hate speech in all its forms, and that basically generalizes it. But as far as directing staff to have the bylaw officers duly trained up and so on, I'd like to see that go to the Policy and Bylaw Committee before we sort of jump the gun on that one. Are you happy with that?
Yes.
Yeah, we can stand for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. With council's indulgence, I've got a mover, Councillor Vic, Councillor McKelvey, and Madam Clerk, you've got the gist of the motion? Okay, so I'll call for discussion. Okay then, all in favor? I'm sure nobody's going to be opposed to that one, so that is carried. Oh, Councillor Elliott, you're voting in favor, right? Thank you. So well, I saw a hand go up, and just paying attention and doing my diligence here. So we have it unanimous. So thank you for that. And we will refer the matter of the training for our bylaw people and any others that we feel might benefit from that training, even council. So I think it is very far-ranging, and thank you for caring and for showing up. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having us.
Do I have one of my Zoom, Councillor Rodenberg or Councillor Elliott? You're all good? Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Rodenberg.
Thank you. So I just wanted to be clear. That motion was affirming the 3 points around the maintenance of the crosswalk, the flying of the flag, and enabling the Pride Week events, correct? Did that also include the condemning the hate speech?
Yes.
Did you include that in that?
Yes, it did. It included the fourth point, or the fourth bullet, condemn hate speech in all of its forms. I mean, I know that's very general, but that is the fourth point on that motion, and the business of the training for the bylaw enforcement officers is going to go to committee.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood exactly what the motion was. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wish I could have been there tonight to see you all, but thank you very, very much for the presentation. It hits close to home for me, with family that are queer and going through so many challenges. I had an issue when I was young in high school. One of my best friends tried to commit suicide, and I was really disappointed that he wouldn't come and talk to me first, and that was a failure on my part, I feel. But yeah, we got through it, and he's around and just doing great. I used to DJ in Whistler for many years, and we used to have a Pride event every year, and it was absolutely fantastic. And hundreds would come in, and we would just party and have a wonderful time. And so I would like to volunteer my services if ever needed to help support you in any way possible. Thank you so much for what you do for our community, and good luck in all your endeavors. I'm there to support any way I can.
I'll be calling you.
I've got your number. I'm going to take a selfie.
I just want to thank everybody in the gallery for coming in support. It means an awful lot, and we want to just take a selfie with you all. Did you get it? Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, and you're most welcome to stick around for budget discussions. We'll just give everybody a few minutes to clear the room, and then we'll get going with our next delegation. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so I guess we're ready to go with our delegation. Tammy Janzen is the Executive Director of the Quesnel Shelter and Support Society. I'm going to have you introduce your compatriots there when you bring them along. So the floor is all yours. Thank you. And remember to turn on your microphone.
Yes.
All right. I'd like to thank Council and Mayor for having us here tonight. I wanted to make the effort to officially introduce myself as the Executive Director for Quesnel Shelter and Support Society. And we've got two new board members here joining me as well, Craig Shurston and Leah Stump. They're also on our board of directors. So just to officially introduce them, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional unceded territory of the LHTAKO DENE Nation as well, and the privilege to live, work, and play here. So the purpose of my meeting, like I said, is just to try to have an open dialogue and good working relationship with the city, and give a little presentation on what we do at the society and answer any questions that you guys may have. So now she said the arrows, but there we go. So at Quesnel Shelter and Support Society, we operate Seasons House. It's the emergency shelter in town. We have 15 funded beds available at Seasons House. During the winter months, we also have emergency weather response beds, which gives us an extra 10 spaces to allow folks into the shelter during those months, typically from November to the end of March. However, during COVID, they have extended the EWR funding so that we have 25 beds throughout the year, and they have let us know that that is going to continue. We also have 10 transitional housing units. They are the rented out to individuals on the upper floors at Seasons House. So these potential tenants are required to fill out an application which includes information on housing barriers and statement of personal income and assets. Tenant selection is based on availability and a housing needs assessment that take into account the barriers that they may be facing. I already spoke about the emergency weather response beds that are available to top up our shelter beds at Seasons House. And available to those shelter clients, we call it a day program, but just to our shelter clients, they have food services available to them, showers, access to laundry facilities, clothing donations, toiletries, health supports, and harm reduction supplies available to them. Housed out of the shelter, we also have a homelessness prevention program. The homelessness prevention program operates with a housing first philosophy that people are better to able to move forward in their lives if their basic needs are met first. And housing is a basic need and human right. There are no conditions such as sobriety or psychiatric treatment that need to be met prior to housing. And HPP clients are provided with housing and then surrounded with supports based on their individual needs. So this homelessness prevention worker works with landlords in community, and it provides a top-up subsidy to supplement their rent so that they can live in community. So this next slide is just a basic pathways to homelessness and understanding what could lead somebody to be homeless. Poverty and lack of affordable housing are leading causes of homelessness in Canada. There are structural factors such as poverty, discrimination, lack of affordable housing, impact of colonization on Indigenous peoples, individual and relationship factors, traumatic events, family violence and abuse, mental health issues, addiction issues, other physical and health issues, and system failures, such as barriers accessing public systems, transition planning from child welfare, discharge planning from publicly funded institutions and systems, for example, hospitals and corrections. On March 10th in 2020, Quesnel Shelter and Support Society conducted the first ever homeless count in Quesnel. And just to note, again on March 10th, this Friday, we have partnered with Homelessness Services Association of BC and are conducting another homeless count in our community. These counts are funded through Homelessness Services Association of BC and BC Housing, and data from the counts constitutes a benchmark to measure progress made to reduce homelessness over time. These are point-in-time counts, a snapshot over 24 hours, and they're usually an undercount.
May I be counted now?
We also operate Bridges Supportive Housing. This is a provincially funded supportive housing for people experiencing homelessness. Supportive housing provides a home with on-site supports to ensure people can achieve and maintain housing stability. Bridges has 28 private self-contained studio apartments. Residents pay $375 a month. This includes their basic utilities and cable. All residents in supportive housing make a choice to live there and able to access services such as 24/7 staff, life skills programming, connections to primary health care, mental health, and/or substance use services. We provide breakfast and dinner 7 days per week at no additional cost, and pets are welcome there. The tenant application process for Bridges Supportive Housing is facilitated through a coordinated access and assessment. There is recognition that the available housing resources are not enough to meet the needs of the community, and therefore it is important to prioritize housing based on the vulnerability and need of the clients, in balance with creating healthy communities within our supported housing sites. The goal is to create a transparent and collaborative process for referrals and coordinated approach for tenant selection. The CAA membership is made up of our society, Northern Health Authority, Quesnel Women's Resource Center, Amata Transition House, and the Salvation Army. At Bridges Supportive Housing, we also have a supportive recovery program. This is 4 units that are based on the main floor away from the tenant units. It's funded through Northern Health Authority, and it's for short-term stays up to 90 days. And these are for individuals who are referred by the health provider, getting ready to head to treatment, returning from treatment, stabilizing on medications, or meeting some individualized case plan goals. Supportive housing will reduce homelessness in communities, and residents are no longer homeless after they are housed. Once in supportive housing, individuals previously experiencing homelessness report improvements in access to employment, income, education, mental health, addictions, and life skills. And that brings me to the end of my little slideshow. We do have a website. Unfortunately, I know it does need some updating. That's not my forte, and you can follow us on Facebook as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Well done. Now I'm going to open the floor up to Council. Councillor Goulet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Tammy, and you guys for coming out and a great understanding of who you are. Thank you for that. My question was just around the emergency weather response, and I know it says November 1st to March 31st. Has there been discussions about extending that for summer months like heat waves and different things that don't occur during that November to March? I know it says extreme weather, but they were just focusing on the cold months. Has there been talks on extending that past? And then the other question is, when you said 25 beds, are they full every single day, every single night, every single day that you have them? Thanks.
So yes, our emergency weather response at the beginning of COVID, as you recall, in March of 2020, technically EWR would have ended at March 31st. Since COVID, the funding for the EWR beds has continued year-round. So, and it will continue to do so. I've been notified that the EWR funding will continue for the fiscal year. I think that answers that question.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else at this point? Oh, Councillor Scott Elliott, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for the presentation. It's always good to try and get your information out there. Welcome aboard, Tammy, and the newer members. Thanks so much for what you do. I know that it just can't be easy, but when we're talking about supportive housing over at Bridges in specific, are you able to see people transitioning into other forms of housing, or is it pretty static with the amount of people that are staying?
So for one, when people move into supportive housing, it's not an expectation that they will eventually move out. If they need to stay in supportive housing for a long period of time, that is okay. It's not an expectation to move out of there. There are some folks that it is hard to stabilize, to buy into services, and so yes, there is some turnover, but for the most part, people flourish when they have supports. They gain employment, they can take care of their pets, they get their basic needs met, and they're not crisis-driven. I'm sorry, I can't remember the remainder of the question, but yeah, they're not expected to move out. And move out to where? That's the other thing. Is there other housing for them to go to?
Yeah, agreed, 100%. It's just, I know all the challenges you face, and yeah, just carry on with the good work. It's appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Now I go to Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we're in the middle of a delegation here, so could you? I can't, I'm sorry, I can't take questions at this point from the audience. Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to go to Councillor Vic.
Tammy, first I want to say you're off to a great start, and I've met with you already once with the Downtown Association, and really looking forward to working with you in the future. And I have to tell you that the talent you've attracted to your board lately is excellent, and I'm so pleased. You've got some great board members working with you, and you have maintained talent for years. So I'm very excited for what comes in the future working with your group. The question I have is pertaining to the extra units that are at Grace Inn. I believe that that contract or that relationship comes to an end at the end of March. I wonder if you could comment on what you see happening with those individuals who are going to be displaced, and what is your role? What is your society's role?
So currently, we do provide outreach services to 20 rooms at the Grace Inn, and that looks like providing meal services morning, lunch, and evening. We also help with doctor's appointments, filling out applications for things, advocacy for those 20 individuals in those rooms. There has been an extension to that contract, which just happened. I don't know if I'm at privy to speak of that, but here I am. And it's not for a year. I don't know what that looks like for our community. It is worrisome for me as a person, and where do people go? And that's why I'm here, to try to advocate for more housing and more options, and work together collaboratively as a community to provide solutions for Quesnel, because where do they go? And the fact of the matter is, the Grace Inn isn't a long-term solution. I don't know if you've been in that building. I haven't actually even been in that building, but I've heard from the people that stay there, and we need to provide long-term solutions for folks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Runge.
Thanks, Tammy, and thanks. Like Mitch, I was at the Downtown Association meeting where you were there also. My question actually goes with regards to the homeless council the last time. If we're just, I'm fearful that it's not going to be status quo. Currently, we're meeting about 64 beds and then 20 at the Grace Inn. Are the other ones being covered on the housing prevention program, or how many are actually totally unhoused and still that we could house if we had housing?
So first of all, people in supportive housing are housed. They are not homeless anymore, so I wouldn't consider them. They won't be counted in the homeless count. Second, the homelessness prevention program, those folks are also housed, and I'm going to say that she assists probably, her caseload's about 40 to 50 individuals that she helps with rental subsidies or crisis hydro subsidies, and that's a monthly subsidy. So they won't be counted in the homeless count either, because they're housed.
Okay, thank you. And
sorry, and the question was, how many do you see that? Well, I guess we'll see after the next survey. Somebody else leave it. Thank you.
Are we good here now? Yeah, okay. Just to the people in the gallery, at the end, our procedure bylaw provides an opportunity at the end of the meeting for anyone to come forward and ask a question regarding anything that is on the agenda. So I just wanted to bring you up to speed on the process. So if you've got a burning question, please hang in there, and we'll deal with it at the end of the meeting. Is there? Okay. So is there anything more? I have a question regarding the homeless count, and I know the homeless count is really not directly in your wheelhouse, but it seems like it's at the same time every year. And I have to wonder, why is the homeless count at the same time every year? I would think that there would be variations, obviously, between summer and winter. And if the homeless count was basically just to happen unannounced, that might affect the outcome too. So are you able to comment on that?
So my understanding, they do the homeless count. So across the province, there's emergency weather response beds, and those generally come to an end at March 31st. So they like the count to be done before March 31st because it's easier to track those individuals who are accessing shelters during those emergency weather response funding. They're in shelters, so they're easier to count.
So I guess further to that, then there's only one homeless count a year. There couldn't be two?
Well, that would be a question for Homelessness Services Association of BC. I'm totally willing to have that question when they're in town on Friday.
It sure would be interesting to sort of see how the demographic changes with the season. So there's my two bits. Is there anyone else that has any questions for our delegation?
Lorianne.
Oh, sorry, Lorianne, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. Thank you. I apologize that I can't see you guys. There's just a big queue on my screen here. So in regards to the comment that you made, Tammy, and congratulations on your new position. I know you've been there for a couple months now, and to your new board members. I know that they're all movers and shakers. I'm sure you're probably aware of the fact that we actually have a draft being prepared for an RFP on trying to complete housing option review for vulnerable populations. So the housing and supportive services required to minimize their susceptibility to homelessness. So the city hasn't just stopped figuring out what to do with our vulnerable populations. We are trying to move forward. So that's going to be happening in the very near future. We're working with our First Nations in sending out this RFP. And I think that, we'll have some good input from all of our community members that work within that population. So it's something to look forward to. Thank you.
Did you have a response to that, or do I go to Councillor Elliott?
No, I was aware of that, and thank you so much, Lorianne.
Okay, Councillor Elliott, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for a second time. Just briefly, we had challenges with BC Housing and their shelter proposal because of the timing of it, and them just coming out and saying, look, you've got this opportunity, get it done right now if that's what you want to do. And it was a real challenge for our community. And what we tried to do, and we heard from the public, is that we have to be in touch as a group, as our whole community, the Shelter Society, residents, businesses, council, everyone, and have these conversations well in advance so that we can put something forward that's actually going to pass and actually going to help. So I look forward to more conversations with you and the rest of the community with BC Housing, because we need it. We just need it to happen in a way that everyone's going to be as comfortable as possible. So we're not giving up, and we'll do the best that we can.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Elliott. Do we have any other speakers or questions? So seeing none, thank you, and onwards and upwards, and you're doing a great job there, and we look forward to working with you further. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Have fun with budgets.
Well played.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is...
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to interrupt, but I feel I should. Is there any way that we can get the cameras figured out?
Is there any way what?
There's everything broken down. All we've got is a black screen. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, I didn't know where that was coming from, but now I do. So we got too many microphones. Okay, so now we're going to go to item number I1, February 22, 2023 Financial Stability and Audit Committee report with Chair Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a quick review of our meeting that we had on February 22nd. The first thing we covered was the financial plan policies review, which I'll defer to Director Bolton, but I believe we do this once every 4 years or every term of council, or is this a yearly?
It's a yearly thing. We review it. We usually do one major updated term and then just keep reviewing it every year.
So we did that, and the committee reviewed the draft financial plan policies that will go into the financial plan bylaw, and these policies will come back to the committee one more time before the bylaw is recommended to council, and that's going to happen at our next FSAC meeting. So for those that have burning questions about what's in that policy, so we identify funding sources for our city, which would be obviously property taxes, user fees, and grants. It also covers the distribution of property taxes, and it also covers permissive tax exemptions. Those are the big nuts that are in that policy. So then we move to an update on our reserve balances. The committee reviewed all of our final reserve balances till the end of 2022, and the estimated balances for December 31st, 2023, based on our current budget estimates. We reviewed what each reserve was used for and the upcoming challenges for those reserves. So what we've based on that, one critical review we are going to be focusing on more than others is the fleet plan review, and that is because of increasing borrowing costs. And heck, it's hard to get vehicles these days. So we've added that to our action list to keep a closer eye on it. Then we covered potential infrastructure grant, and I believe we have a little more information tonight on that. I'll let Director Bolton carry that forward. But there is the provincial government announced an infrastructure funding grant to all municipalities in the province with a minimum funding level of $500,000. But since our meeting on the 22nd, there is a little bit more information on that. And I'd like, if Director Bolton's willing, to give us a little more information.
Sure. So the city heard that we'll be getting $3.127 million, I believe. We still have not received the details from the province of exactly what the funding requirements are, so we're hoping we'll get that soon, because I know they hope to get the money out before the end of March, so we should get some more information quite quickly.
Thank you, Director Bolton. And the last thing I'll add to that grant is the committee discussed a principle that we should be using this funding for an existing project that's already on our plate, not something new. And we all know there are many projects that we have our eyes on right now, so we can discuss that. Then we moved on to an update on our surplus. We have a surplus for the last fiscal year. Final entries are still being booked for the financial statements, and this final report will come to FSAC this month. Staff will be recommending that the surplus be split into the capital reinvestment reserve and the tax stabilization reserve, both of which have been heavily subscribed by council. The auditor update. We talked about the contract that the city has with our auditors, which ended in 2022. The RFP and contract with the auditors included the potential for a rollover for an additional 5 years, and staff requested and received a proposal from KPMG for the next 5 years. Staff recommended the continued use of KPMG. The cost of the audit would be $31,500 in 2023, which is a slight increase from 2022. And on that, we make a recommendation moved by Councillor Elliott, seconded Councillor McKelvey, that we continue with KPMG. I guess I would move that motion, would I not? So I'll move that motion out of.
Okay, that's moved by Councillor Vic and seconded by Councillor McKelvey. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none. Councillor Runge.
Yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't discuss that. So RFPs over 25,000, do they have to go out to tender?
Our policy is RFPs over 50,000, but the original RFP had 5 years plus a rollover of 5 years. Just had to be recommitted.
So, I'm just curious. I'm just curious if any of the other accounting firms would come in at lower than that, or is it because we like them that we just, for the difference of the couple thousand, we're just going to stay with them?
Yeah,
Could be one way or
it's
the
not
other.
just price, it's obviously quality of service as well. We find KPMG has quite a knowledge in the municipal field of accounting, so they have experts whenever we have any issues we can contact across the country. So they're very useful on that front.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see Councillor Elliott and Councillor Rudenberg on the screen, so I'm unable to know if they have a question or not. Okay, there they are.
Here, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Zoom land?
No questions here.
Okay, thank you. All right, we do have a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, the next one, there's not a handout or anything attached to the agenda other than in the minutes. And this has to do with the February 21, 2023 resolution number 2308114, which is the tax shifting option. And I'm just going to relate for council's benefit and for everyone's benefit, that when a motion comes back for reconsideration, any member may bring to the next council meeting a motion to reconsider a vote. Any council member means that it does not matter if they voted for or against the motion in the first place. If the motion to reconsider is passed, then discussion can begin on the topic. And there's another way of dealing with this kind of a situation, and that is a motion to rescind the original motion, and that can only be brought forward or moved by a member of council who voted in favor of the original resolution. So that would mean anyone except Councillors Elliott and Rudenberg, because they voted against the motion in the first place. To reconsider, in my view, does not mean substantially changing the intent. For example, if the discussion was to, or the move was to have the tax shift changed from 1% to some other number or eliminated completely, I would suggest that that is a substantial change and would necessitate rescinding the original motion to make way for a new one. I'd just like the staff to comment on that. Am I sort of on the money there?
Yeah, you could amend the original motion if it's not a major change.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We could amend the original motion, but if it substantially changes the intent of the motion, then it would be advisable to rescind and then start with a new motion. So I'm opening the floor to see if anyone has an appetite to either move to reconsider or move to rescind.
Just to be clear, the policy is we have to have a motion to reconsider before we even talk about potentially rescinding. Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. But
Yeah.
we could have a motion now to rescind.
No, we first have to have the motion to reconsider.
So, okay, so we need a motion to reconsider in advance if there was to be a motion to rescind.
Correct.
Okay, so therefore, Councillor Vic.
I'll make a motion to reconsider. I think there's lots to talk about, so I'm more than happy to talk about it.
Okay,
And
so
I will second that motion.
Okay, so it's moved by Councillor Vic, seconded by Councillor Goulet to reconsider. Going to call, I don't know where my Zoom delegation or, okay, so now I'm calling question, or any further discussion before I call the question. Councillor Runge.
I'm torn with this because people know that I actually don't like to increase taxes, but I really do have an issue with the way we are discussing things at one meeting, and then we don't like things, they come back afterwards. So I just, it sets a precedent that if we use this to...
With all due respect, could we deal with the motion and then get into the discussion?
It's with regards to the motion of reconsideration. If we use reconsider, and it's not about this, it's reconsideration in general, Mr. Mayor, if I can, because to reconsider is actually fairly serious. And so if we get into the habit of always reconsidering motions, no motion here will be sacred. Just a point.
Thank you for that. I must say that in my long history, I think this is the first time that I've ever experienced this. So this is a very rare occasion. So we're not in the habit of reconsidering, but certainly I see that there's a demonstrated need here to reconsider. So we have a mover and a seconder. Is there any discussion before I call the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, the floor is open.
Councillor Elliott would like to speak.
Sorry, I have Councillor Rudenberg.
Sorry, I didn't think you could see Councillor Elliott's hand up, Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Elliott, I'm sorry. You were off screen there just for a moment.
I'm all over the place, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, and thank you to Council for giving us the opportunity to talk about this again. We had a good discussion about this before, but once again, I argued against this, and I think that this is not the time to shift taxes onto the residents. We did a budget survey, as we're well aware, and 76% of the population that replied to that said no to a tax shift. If we look at it, if we look at this, the biggest advantages would come out to the big box stores, the big grocery stores, and they would get 66% of that benefit. And in effect, what would happen is we're shifting from commercial onto residential, and the residents would almost have their taxation doubled. So with the timing of this year, with house assessments going through the roof, with mortgages up, and people having a tough time just paying the bills, inflation is going through the roof as well, with gas, groceries, all of this. It's a very, very challenging time, and I just don't think it is the right time to do this whatsoever. I had someone put forward a petition that is on my Facebook page that people can sign, and hopefully it's not too late now, but over, I think 150 people have signed this now. The voice of the community is coming through loud and clear that people just don't, the vast majority, I believe, just don't agree with this. So if you would like me to put a motion to rescind forward, then I would, but I'm open to discussion on this for sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity.
Okay, I've got Councillor Elliott, or pardon me, Councillor Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was really torn on this one, and I know I was debating. I heard the debate, listened to both sides, and really took it hard after I left the meeting and really thought about what the impacts and how it does. You know, to Scott Elliott's point, maybe it's not now, and maybe it's for a future discussion, or maybe it's even a 0.5 or a 0.25 or something to begin the conversation is what I was coming back with. But as one of the original people that was in favor of the motion, I believe I'm able to make a motion to rescind, and that's what I'm going to actually do, is rescind that, and then we look at other options if there is need be, or we look at changing it in a complete way. But I think at this point I'll make that motion and put it on the floor.
Thank you, Councillor. I have a motion to rescind, and that was moved by one of the council members that was in favor the first time around, so we're above board on that. And Councillor Elliott, you are seconding that motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I will now call for discussion on that motion before we go to the vote.
Just point of order, I'm not sure, if Scott, is Scott able to?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Scott, sorry.
Yes, it has to be moved by someone that was in favor, but it doesn't necessarily have to be seconded by someone that was in favor. Am I right? Thank you. All right, so do...
Just be as the mover, just to speak to some points that I have written down?
Is that okay? Okay, let's go to Councillor Goulet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just sort of as the mover and wondering why I'm putting in a rescind. You know, I really thought about things, and if you look at things that are upcoming, we have a surplus discussion. We have $3.2 million coming from this fund, and I think we need to take those into consideration. Like, it's not taking this right. I don't feel taking it right off the table at this point, but further discussions need to come forward for me, and that's my reasoning for rescinding. I just felt that we can do some things and really tighten our budget and look at that. So rather than increasing and shifting our taxes at this particular time.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Vic.
I'm not sure if we've already passed we've already voted on the budget itself, so I'm not sure if there's an opportunity to open that up and start digging into that again. Director Bolton, I don't know.
The only challenge at this point is time. So the bylaw has to come forward in April, but we do still have the surplus discussion coming forward. And yeah, we have another month, but we do have to get going on the bylaw for sure.
Well, I will say that it's going to be pretty tight because we don't have another meeting, a council meeting, until March 28. So is that still within the comfort zone?
We have an FSAC meeting before that, so then anything coming out of the FSAC meeting could come to that meeting, but that would be getting to the point where I have to put the bylaw together to bring for readings.
Well, certainly that would not preclude, if necessary, calling a special open meeting at any time. We have the capability of doing that. So, Councillor
Rudenberg.
Councillor Rudenberg, I'm sorry, I had Councillor Vic, but I'll let you go ahead.
I apologize if Councillor Vic wants to go, but I have a few points I would like to make. So, people ask me why I voted against the tax shift, but voted for the budget. So, in conversation, for me, we're backwards. We should have voted on the budget first and then had the discussion around the tax shifting. Because I know that the FSAC worked hard to get the budget to where we asked them to get it to. So part of me with this tax shifting, I'm really concerned about the fact that this is not going to benefit who we think it's going to benefit. I look at the fact that a lot of our small business owners do not own their buildings. They lease or rent. So do you think that landlords or owners, building owners, are going to translate their tax savings down to the lease or rent, especially the lease piece? Because if you're locked in for a 5 or a 10-year lease, you're not going to get the benefit of a tax shift. So I'm really concerned about that in my mind's eye. This is the way I understand it. The other piece is I'd really like to know where this came from. Like, there's been no formal ask from any of the BIAs for tax relief. So where has this thought that we need to have the 1% tax shift coming from? Because we had 2 presentations with BIAs.
Excuse me, I think we have a point of order here. Aren't we still, are you speaking to rescinding? Like, we're talking about, our motion here is about rescinding it.
I'm sorry, I was not given a chance to speak before that happened.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna let Councillor Rudenberg finish her piece.
Thank you. I was not given an opportunity before the motion to rescind came on the table. So this is supporting the motion to rescind because of these basic thoughts that I'm putting on the table right now. And we have to remember, when we do tax shifting, like we did with industry, there was a case put before us, a really solid, hard case. This is going to prove punitive to another tax bracket if we move forward with this. But the one question I would like to ask is, where did this come from? Because like I said, we had 2 DIAs do presentations most recently, and neither one of them asked for tax shifting. So that question can be answered. That would, for me, it's kind of like, why is this here? Because I know it was not asked for formally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. Now I'm going to go to Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll address some of the questions Councillor Rudenberg raised. They're good questions. The first one is, where does it come from? And that's pretty easy. Last council, I believe the last a couple budget cycles, we weren't given some information, and maybe it wasn't asked for, I don't know, but we weren't given a ranking summary of our communities for the last several years. Definitely, Director Bolton intimated that there were trends, but we weren't given the metrics on where our communities sit as compared to other communities. This time around, that data was available to FSAC, and honestly, I believe it's beholden on me as the chair and us as a council. We need to look at all the data, and we need to make decisions, certainly that reflect and protect all tax classes. And I guess where I was coming from is it seems that over a long period of time, commercial rates have crept to a point where I felt a concern. And we can also make the same argument with our industrial Class 4 rates. So the answer to the question, Councillor Rudenberg, is the data was available, and it was pointed into a trend that was concerning, and I thought warranted a conversation. And that's where this came from last time. It's a conversation. It was an idea, and I, like all councillors in the last couple of weeks, have certainly heard an earful. And like I said at the last council meeting after Councillor Elliott's comments, I agreed with everything he said. Timing is awful. Burdening residential taxpayers is awful. But we also are beholden, and we're also responsible for other ratepayers as well as residential ratepayers. And my only idea, my motive for bringing it in as a motion was, look, it's time to look at this seriously and understand, is it gone too far, and do we need to take a step to equalize that situation in terms of commercial taxation? So that was sort of the motive, that was the idea. And I guess my thoughts on reflecting on this in the last 2 weeks, absolutely, like all others around the table here, certainly had very meaningful conversations with a lot of constituents. And it's definitely sort of brought the conversation back that maybe it is too soon, maybe it's too much, and I'm open to other ideas. And if the idea turns out that it's just not possible this year, I respect that, I really do. But it's a conversation we need to have as a council. I truly believe it's affecting our competitiveness in the north, and I worry about the future. That's where it comes from. And I really think we need to have a serious conversation about this. If not now, if not no action now, then when? And I really look forward to continuing that dialogue.
Thank you, Councillor Vic. Do I have anyone else before I sort of jump in here? This goes back a little bit. Oh, Councillor Rudenberg, go ahead.
Thank you. So one of the other points that I forgot to make is, so this council has supported moving forward with a pool referendum. So one of the first thoughts that came to my mind after this is we have just wiped that right off the table. If we're really serious about needing to have the amenities for our communities, this kind of a tax shift is going to just decimate any kind of opportunity for us to get a successful pool referendum.
Thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. I just want to say, and this goes to your earlier comments, Councillor Rudenberg, and that is that I've received, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 phone calls, and one guy stopped me in Walmart and said, "What the hell are you doing? You campaigned on holding your line on spending, and here you are looking at a tax increase of, what, 9%? And I had to really think about that what we're doing here with the tax shift is that we're not changing the spending. We're changing the allocation of how that spending is going to be apportioned between different tax classes. And when I explained that to the caller and to my friend in Walmart, they kind of understood. But it's interesting that the initial public perception of what we're doing is not really totally understood. So having said that, we have a motion on the floor to rescind, right? But we haven't voted on it. So is there any further discussion on the motion to rescind the last council meeting resolution? Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed?
In favor?
Wait, okay, yeah, I'm looking at the screen. Councillor Rudenberg and Councillor Elliott are in favor of rescinding, and Councillor Councillor Tony and Councillor McKelvey are in favor of rescinding, and those opposed to rescinding. So I guess the motion passes. So is there any further action or anything further coming on this matter at this present time, knowing that our next opportunity is March 28th or the next FSAC, which is in the meantime? So shall we stay tuned for further developments? Okay, Councillor Runge.
Yeah, I think in fairness to what was said before, my question to council, are we in favor of any kind of tax shifting? So with that being said, I'll put this motion forward, and if it's defeated, then we know straight away. I would like to keep this intent going a little bit, given that it does actually affect small business owners. Even if they don't own the building, with their triple net, they do actually pay the increases at 4-point-something per times, I think it is. So I would like to propose maybe a 0.5% tax shift still. So we're still moving forward, moving in that direction, still supporting the other rate classes. And if I don't get a...
Okay, and you're seconding it, Councillor Vic. Is there any discussion on this one? It's a motion to basically cut the 1% tax shift in half to 0.5%. Okay, discussion? Oh, Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. To every point that I've made previously, this is not the year to do any tax shifting. The people have been heard. To move around this and go 0.5%, no, I don't need to tell you all the reasons again. I'm going to vote against this. This is not the time to do any kind of tax shifting from commercial and put the burden onto residential. I will be voting against this.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Runge.
So thank you, and I appreciate that, Councillor Elliott. So my hope is that if council decides to vote against this motion, which is absolutely fair, that we actually go further than this afterwards and look into it, possibly a deep dive, just that we consider a deep dive into our all of the things that we look at, so that we actually go forward. Because if we think this year's bad, next year has a few ugly surprises coming up too. So, Councillor Elliott, I do agree with you. I do agree with you that this might not be a good time, but I'm really worried that it's never going to be a good time.
Thank you, Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to go into the principle of why I think it's prudent to begin the process, but I'll just Councillor Rudenberg made a comment regarding how renters are not susceptible to taxation through their commercial landlords, and And that may be true in a very small minority of cases, but if you analyze triple net rent, triple net is part of a rent that a tenant pays. It is not locked into a term. Triple net floats from year to year to year, and with the biggest component of triple net is taxes. So a business will pay, if for instance, they share a space with 3 or 4 other tenants, they will pay the percentage of the space they use in the building in taxation. Like they'll pay their percentage of the property taxes. So I think there are very few instances where triple net's not applied. So just to illustrate that a tax shift only affects the property owner, that's not the case in most cases. It would positively benefit the bottom line of a business. And that's I just want to clarify that.
Thank you, Councillor Bick. Anything more before I call the question? Oh, Councillor, okay, Councillor Rudenberg first.
Thank you. And so I appreciate the clarification on the triple net piece. The other piece that I would like, if we're going to do a deep dive into this, please do not make this a late agenda item. If this is going to be a discussion that you want, people need to make sure that they have the time and energy to read and ask questions before they come to the council meetings. So please don't make this a late agenda item because it's just unfair to having a wholesome discussion.
Good point. Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do understand that some of the businesses through triple net would feel that effect for sure. I get that. But the effect of that is very minimal as compared to what we're talking about with the residents and almost doubling their taxation at this point in time. So it's a drastic difference for residents, and I do not feel it is a drastic difference for commercials. Also, when we're looking at where we position ourselves in 142 other communities and things like that, we have challenges here in the north in our community that others do not. And if you do a deep dive into some of the challenges here as far as food security and other issues here, they're massive as compared to others. So that's got to be taken into account as well. Further, and to Councillor Bick's point of the data has just become available through Director Bolton. That just isn't the case. The data is always there. We can look at every taxation class and dig as deep as we want at any time of the year. It's always available.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Now I'm going to go to Councillor Runge.
Oh, this is almost getting fun. Okay, so there's a few things. Your point there, Councillor Elliott, with regards to the percentage. Williams Lake is 2.5, we're 4.4. Williams Lake has fairly similar, situations to us. So just as a, so yeah, I think the deep dive might be warranted. But on another point and the point that I think the public and our discussion neglects is we're dealing with a 5.9% increase, I believe anyway. A 2% increase to do this tax shift to take us to, I think it's a 7.1 or a 7.2, and we're always dealing with these monster amounts, these doubling of. But I think the amount that we're looking at is $30. Is it a $30? How much is it per hundred? I think it comes out to the average household. It comes out to about $30, $35. So just we have to keep things in perspective too, and I do understand that is for some people a big problem also. So I don't want to belittle that point.
Point of order.
Go ahead, Councillor Rudenberg. Go ahead.
Sorry. My understanding it's 9.7, not 7.2. So please, I'm not sure where the 2% on top of the 5.7. It's a 9.7% tax, not 7.2.
I'll defer to Carrie Bolton.
So just to clarify, the 1%, which we've already rescinded, was a 9.5%, but now we're discussing a 0.5%, which would be a 7.3% increase to the residents.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, for clarification, so the 7 or the 0.5% would equal out to 7.3%. Okay, thank you.
And just for clarification there, because we are...
Wait, I think I've got a speaker over here. Councillor Elliott, are you good?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, just for clarity from Director Bolton, if we went with the 1% tax increase, would that be the largest tax increase that we've gone through in the last few decades?
It would be the largest, but only slightly larger than last year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Runge.
So I'm going to defer to Director Bolton, because we have a tax increase already on the table if we go 0, and I think that's 5.9.
The tax increase for the operating budget with no tax shifting is 5.3%.
Okay, so with no tax shifting, it's 5.3%, and then so it's an extra 2% with the half, taking us to 7.2. I just wanted to be, we're dealing with big percentage numbers, like it's a 2% difference there. It's not the 9 that you're referring to always.
Okay, thank you. I think we've pretty well exhausted that one. I'm going to call for the question now on the motion, which is to go to a 0.5% shift. So, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. The motion is defeated. So I guess we can move on to the next item on our agenda here. And that was a very good, healthy discussion. And we're going to be, do you want to jump in for a moment there, Councillor Vic?
Yeah, I don't want that to be lost. This is a great conversation. Yeah. I don't want it to be lost. We don't agree on this, but this is what makes it work here.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor. We're not to discuss things after the vote has been taken. Thank you.
I was just trying to be polite there, so we'll move on. All right, so the next item on the agenda is Admin Report 3923, Operating Budget, Director Bolton. Oh no, pardon me. That's the reconsideration. So, are we now moving to city staff reports? Admin Report 21A23, Quesnel Downtown Association Business Improvement Area Bylaw number 1935. We're being asked to rescind second reading, amend second reading, and then move to third reading. Am I right with that? Okay, so now, do we require 3 separate resolutions to do all of that? Okay, so I'm looking now for a resolution to rescind second reading of bylaw number 1935 of 2023.
Mayor, I do have a report to explain all this before
I think we should let you have your report. Thank you.
Thanks. So the purpose of this report is to request council to proceed with the third reading of the City of Quesnel Downtown Business Improvement Area Bylaw. So the bylaw is a council initiative bylaw subject to petition against. So the Downtown Quesnel BIA bylaw expired in 2022, and the group came forward requesting a 5-year extension. After the first 2 readings of this bylaw, staff mailed to all the businesses in the respective BIA areas the budgets and plans with an estimate of the cost and the instructions for the petition. The Downtown Quesnel BIA has requested an adjustment to the boundary, a copy of their letters included with this. So in the report, I have the list of all the opposed business owners, but I also did receive a late one. So in your late items, there's a new list with the 6th owner that was also against. And there was also a 7th letter received, but it was actually past the deadline, but I just included it for information. So there's the list of all the ones that have been opposed. There's attached a copy of the new Schedule A, which is the new map, because the QDA requested that one property that was down on Legion Drive by itself be removed from the map, and they've got their rationale in the letter that's included. So yes, the recommendation is that council rescind the second reading of the City of Quesnel with Downtown Quesnel Business Improvement Area Bylaw to adjust the Schedule A at the request of the Quesnel Downtown Business Association, and then proceed with second reading again.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm looking for, finally, catching up with myself here, I'm looking for a motion to rescind second reading of that bylaw. Moved Councillor Runge, seconded Councillor McKelvey. Any discussion? Oh, I don't see anybody on the screen there. We'll wait for them to come up. Does anyone?
Yeah, I was just
ahead,
just trying to
Councillor
second
Elliott.
it, Mayor. I apologize, Mr. Mayor. I was just trying to second.
Okay, so you're good? Yeah, I apologize because sometimes you're on the screen and sometimes you're not. So we've got to figure out the technology there. So, okay, so seeing no discussion on that, all in favor of rescinding second reading? Carried unanimously. Now we need to proceed with second reading as amended, with a new second reading. Okay, so I'll move that, or I'll go with that one. Councillor Runge and Councillor Elliott moves, seconds it. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. And do we go to, we don't go to third at this point?
Yes, the recommendation would be to go to third, and in the late package is a revised third bylaw because it just includes the amount of property owners that were opposed and the percentage that was opposed, yeah.
Okay, so a motion now to proceed with third reading of that bylaw. Councillor Vic, Councillor Runge. Any discussion? Councillor Runge.
Yeah, my question is actually with regards to the opposed. Is there any way that we just have their roll number and their address without a name on it? I just don't want anyone ever to feel, because their name is being put out in a public process, that they have to be there. And I'm not sure if there's any policy that goes with that. Thank you.
They're business owners, so it's not personal information, and I've also included the letters so that council can see their rationale for why they're opposed. So the letters have their names and everything on it and their business names.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So any further discussion on that motion? We're on the motion for third now, aren't we? Okay, and we have a mover and a seconder. So now I'm going to call question on that resolution to go to third. All in favor? Thank you. Good. We got everybody. All right, moving on. Admin report number 21B 23, South Quesnel Business Association, third reading, Director Bolton to report.
So this is very similar. So the purpose of this report is to request council to proceed with the third reading of the City of Quesnel, South Quesnel Business Improvement Area. So we went through the exact same process, and included in the report is the list of the businesses that were opposed. So it was 6.7%. So that's been added to the bylaw. So the recommendation that council proceed with the third reading of the City of Quesnel, South Quesnel Business Improvement Area Bylaw 1936.
Thank you, Director Bolton. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion for third reading. Councillor Vic. Come on, somebody. Oh, Councillor Elliott, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Good show. Now we're really cooking with gas here. The next one is Admin Report 41F/23, Notice on Title 1825 Highway 97 North, Chief Building Officer, that should be Building Official, Hicks to report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this is to obtain council direction regarding placement of a notice on title on 1825 Highway 97 North, commercial and residential building. Summary: subject property has been identified by the chief building official as being in contravention of the City of Quesnel building regulations. Property owner has been given reasonable time to bring the property into compliance. The building department is not aware of any life safety issues that place occupants in immediate danger. However, the contraventions could result in third-party risk should the property be sold at some time in the future. Recommendations that, as per Section 57 of the Community Charter, Council approves the Chief Building Official's recommendation to file notice on title for the following property. 1825 Highway 97 North is in contravention of Section 7 of Bylaw Number 1550 of 2003. and that council direct staff to file notice with Land Title Office stating a resolution relating to the lands has been made under Division 8, Section 57 of the Community Charter, and information about the conditions may be inspected at City Hall. Statutory requirements is Section 57 from the Community Charter, Council Policy Building Bylaw, financial implications, $35 bylaw contravention notice file fee. Background, 1825 Highway 97 North, Lot 2, District Lot 346, Caribou District Plan, PGP 7731, owner Jody Mighton, 0807915 BC Limited, 683 St. Laurent Avenue, Quesnel, BC, V2J3P2. Correspondence was sent to the owner in June 17, 2020 in response to a building license location change application for Top Notch Woodworks. Summary of contact and correspondence. A fire inspection on June 16, 2020 identified operating of a spray paint booth without professional engineering for the same. The CBO directed the owner to apply for 2 building permits, one for professionally engineered space for the spray booth and one for the upper level residence suite created without permits, no applications or plans submitted. July 20th, 2020, correspondence to the owner requesting required application plans and professional design review of spray booth. CBO advised a do not occupy will be posted on July 31st, 2020 if not received. Owner submission incomplete application packages for residential suite and spray booth on August 10th, 2020. No response from owner to requests for building plans information. November 16th, 2020, correspondence sent advising that a DNO or do not occupy will be posted on November 20th if required plans are not submitted. Building permit for residential suite approved and issued November 20th, 2020. No inspections requested to date, and permit expired on November 20th, 2022 without approved occupancy. December 21, 2021, correspondence to owner advising that the CBO will be recommending a notice on title that unpermitted spray booth and unapproved occupancy of the residential suite. Owner responds that they have retained Access Engineering to review the design the spray booth space and notify the CBO that they will not continue to occupy the residential suite until occupancy is approved. There have been no submissions for the spray booth and no inspections for the residential suite to date.
Thank you. So we're looking for a motion to approve the recommendation which is contained within your report. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Rudenberg. You're moving?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Yes.
I'll move staff recommendation.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Goulet. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. So the next item is admin report 34A/23 RV campground or RV park campground rules. Manager Gauthier to report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council the proposed rules and guidelines for the Quesnel Downtown RV Park and Campground. In summary, at the February 7th Council meeting, the naming and fee structure of the new municipal campground was presented. At that time, a discussion ensued about a few of the rules and guidelines regarding the campground. The following attachment is the proposed rules and guidelines being presented for council approval or council amendment. Phone and email info will be included from our contractor in short order. Many of the proposed rules and guidelines are similar in nature to other municipal campgrounds. When researching their rules, guidelines, and fee structure, the recommended rules and guidelines ensure that the maximum stay is 3 consecutive days based on council feedback at the February 7th meeting. However, council may wish to consider a maximum stay of 4 consecutive days in light of events such as Billy Barker Days. Basically, a recommendation is put forward, provided for council for information, and no resolution required.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions? I have one little question, and that is, do the camp fees include tax? Is there tax on top of that? Do you know?
I believe there will be, yes.
Okay, thank you. And, I got one other one here, and that is for the, for barbecues, hibachis, and camp stoves are permitted on the picnic tables, but it says that we should put down aluminum foil. I think that something a little more substantial than a sheet of, I don't know what those picnic tables are made out of, but certainly aluminum foil's not going to do it. Just food for thought.
Fair enough.
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor, if I could?
Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Richard, for the report. And just for clarity, oh, you know what? No, I just got it. I was curious because you said 4 consecutive days, and I'm reading 3, and then it says 4 here as well. So yeah, that got it. Thank you so much.
It's all good. Okay, Councillor Runge.
So maybe mine goes right to what Councillor Elliott just said. So on the maximum stay, it does still say 3 consecutive days. So my question is whether 4 is enough. If you arrive on Thursday for Billy Barker Days, you got Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, leave on Monday. Does that make it 5 days?
4 nights.
So then it would be 4 consecutive nights, I believe, instead of days.
Okay.
So I'd like to propose that we make it to 4 consecutive nights, so that we cover that, wherever it has to be done. During. No, it wouldn't matter. Because let's say there's a wedding or something, 4 nights might, that still gives them time to be in town.
So just for clarification, are you talking 4 consecutive nights throughout, or just at Billy Barker Days?
I'm actually talking throughout. It's a lot easier to handle. And let's say you've got some family coming up for a wedding, and you're coming up once again on a Thursday. You could have Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then you have to go.
You sold it to me, but let's see if we can sell it to the rest of council. Do we need a motion to make that little change, or can we just go ahead and do that? Done. Thank you. I love it when a plan comes together. Okay, so the next report is report number 45/2023, and this is from the Recreation Manager, Disc Golf.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So in looking at my summary, quite detailed. I'm going to try to speed through this a little bit in light of this heavy evening. But so bear with me if I need to come back to anything, I certainly can. But as part of its strategic planning process, Council discussed options for a disc golf course in Quesnel and directed staff to bring forward a report with additional info and recommendations. So disc golf every year, well over 100 new courses are planned and installed, and thousands of new players take up the sport. Disc golf is currently one of the fastest growing sports, probably with pickleball. Disc golf is similar to regular golf, but instead of clubs and balls, players use golf discs. Players throw discs for drives, approaches, and putts instead of a hole in the ground. A vertical basket with chains is the target. An estimated 7 to 10 million people have played disc golf, as it's easy to learn, fun, affordable, offers a challenge to people of all ages and skills. Courses are reasonable and expensive to install. It's categorized as a safe, low-impact form of outdoor exercise, can be recreational or competitive, without the typical high costs of most similar activities. We did conduct a Quesnel residence survey. So as part of that process, back in November 2022, for about 3 weeks, we had about 83 respondents take part. A few of the data, 98% felt that they'd like to see a disc golf course established in our community. 93% said that they and their family would benefit from disc golf in our community. 23 people shared comments. You know, I'll let you read through those, but basically they're saying, like, Williams Lake has one, we'd love to have one here, a fantastic idea for an addition to Quesnel, please make this happen, would love to see, you know, a course here in town. That full survey is attached for review. To note, Williams Lake just built a new 18-hole championship level course with movable baskets to accommodate tournament play and beginners and intermediates. They attained a grant called the Canada Community Revitalization Fund to assist with funding a portion of their project. In general, next steps for Quesnel potentially include acquiring a registered professional to determine which park location would be ideal to accommodate a disc golf course. The cost to hire a consultant to review and analyze potential locations and recommend a preferred site, provide options for course size and quality, and where applicable, provide a design cost for each path forward is up to $4,000. So my recommendation that council approve an allocation of $4,000 from council initiatives for design consulting services for a disc golf course in Quesnel. There's quite a detailed background. I will let you guys go through that. Open to questions.
Okay, thank you, Director. I'm opening the floor now to questions.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, please. I can't see you, but you're going to go ahead.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought my video should be up. Just to Richard then, is it needed for us to spend $4,000? Because for me, and maybe I'm not well in the loop here, but it seems like the Timber Park would be a perfect location for it. I don't know that we need to pay someone to tell us that the Timber Park is going to be a perfect location for it.
Yeah, good question. I think that's obviously the one that jumped off the page to all of us. I think what the registered professional can bring forward to us is, you know, how many holes that we could fit in that space. You know, they are the professionals in designing courses. And I think a big thing we need to consider is making a safe course. And just to kind of just jump to, and it may even be that West Fraser Timber Park is the one that fits our scope and our size. But I think having this person come in and kind of, he can look up to 7 potential locations and kind of determine best spot for us. And then we can go from there. That was what, you know, I was putting forward.
So if I could, Mr. Mayor, do they help on design and things like that, or just tell us what park? Because if that was the case, if we're getting a professional that, I mean, it's only $4,000. I mean, it is taxation money, but do they help us design it in any way, or just, because I can't even think of another park off my top of my head. We're not going to put it in Laborde or, you know, so.
Yeah, they will design kind of like an option, like based on a 9-hole, a 6-hole, a 12, an 18, whatever they can do. They'll put some design cost options forward that we can choose from.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much. I'll be voting in favor of the recommendation. I'll even move the recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so we have a mover for the recommendation. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Vic. And this is for $4,000 for a consultant. Councillor Runge, you got a question?
I do. So, Richard, this is to you. Have we had any discussions with Williams Lake with regards to cost, maintenance, and all those types of things? Because, excuse me, although I love the idea, if I look at, you know, I'm looking at some of these things in Williams Lake, like, do they know how many people are using it right now down there? Do we have any of those numbers?
I don't. They just opened up just prior to the winter season, pretty much. They kind of got a late start. So I was going to go down, and I'm in contact with Stacy Miranda, who's the director in Williams Lake, very keen on the sport. So, yeah, I'm going to ask all those questions to see where they're at and stuff like that, and I'm going to go view it as well.
Because I really don't, going back to the point, I don't have a big, you know, I'm not really opposed to the $4,000 spent on that, but you know what? I'd rather first do a couple phone calls to a couple communities around the north that have it and say, hey, is it working or isn't it working? And if it's not working for them, or if they're finding vandalism or whatever, or things like that, then I'd rather hold back on the $4,000 and just say no, thank you. Like, I'm not sure if it, you know, almost like a caveat, a couple phone calls first. If it's really looking really solid everywhere, by all means, go with it. But if not, you know, hold back.
Their turnout in Williams Lake was quite high prior to the season. They didn't have data, though, to like say how many users and all that stuff. But at this point in time, we have made calls. I think, the feedback I'm getting is very positive for the community. Low cost. It's a low cost to maintain a course, as opposed to maintaining, say, like a regular golf course. You're the game's played in the air, so to speak, so you don't have all the fairway, taking care of all those kind of things. So the feedback I'm getting is it's very highly positive to communities.
Thank you for that, and thank you, Councillor Runge, because you kind of share the same concern that I do. I can't really get terribly excited about this, but I am willing to support the idea of going to a consultant and getting a report, because at the end of the day, I don't want to see us getting trapped into having operating costs outside of the revenue that is received. I presume people are going to pay to do this, so I'm looking to get the whole story.
Yeah, hopefully not to dissuade you here, but a lot of time it is free. It isn't a paid activity. It's more of a community, family-driven opportunity that people can recreate together.
Well, I'm sure that, before I go to Councillor Vic, I'm sure that, and I'm going to go to Councillor McKelvey, I'm sure that the consultant's report would include, projected operating costs and maintenance costs, et cetera. So that's something that I would be very interested in looking at before I nod my head in favor of this. So where did I go? I got Councillor Vic. Go ahead, Councillor Vic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, generally, I'm supporting this. This is a potentially new amenity, attract visitors, residents to our community. It's all part of that package. I guess for the future sustainability of this sport or activity, maybe this is for Director Norburn, but would this be practical to include in our rec function at some point?
Yeah, it certainly could be, especially if there's capital cost to construct it. That's something, you just have to have that discussion at the joint advisory committee table and get buy-in from the northern directors as well as the members of council. There's no reason why it couldn't be incorporated into the North Caribou Recreation and Parks function.
That is an interesting point, because I noticed that there was more people in the survey that were from outside of the municipality as inside the municipality. Okay, Councillor McKelvey.
I'm just curious if you've looked into private enterprise and what they would pay for a round of disc golf, just out of curiosity.
So private enterprise?
Yeah, if somebody were to actually build a course.
Oh, no,
privately?
I haven't explored that. No, I think there is, actually, I think Williams Lake, this is the third disc golf that they actually have. So their intention was to build an 18-hole tournament, gold level, so to speak, to attract tournaments to their community and kind of gain that tourism. But no, I haven't explored anything in regards to private.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKelvey. Go to Councillor
Yeah,
Runge.
just to Councillor McCauley's point, because I was discussing it with my students today, what do you think of disc golf? And they say, I'd rather play real golf. But in Williams Lake, they were saying that they had it at the golf course. It was put together by the golf course. They said the golf course, they noticed that it had various different holes, if you want, holes in the ground for different types of because they're small baskets that where the disc goes into, and so they'd set it up on the golf course so that they could change the holes and make it more of a professional, I think, gold level course, and that's, I think, what you were referring to.
Okay, thank you. Any more discussion on this one? We do have a motion on the floor, right? Okay, moved and seconded. Okay, so all in. Oh, sorry, Councillor Runt.
Yeah, just a clarification to the motion. So the motion would give us someone to look at whether it's feasible. Would they also come up with what the potential startup cost would be? Like if each of them takes a little concrete pad in those baskets, I think it's quite nominal actually, but it's, would they have that expertise already?
So I'll kind of read you what he said. So it would be a feasibility study, an on-site review of up to 7 subject properties, an evaluation of each property's potential on over 20 key indicators, and then a design, where applicable, design costs for each path forward. Obviously, if we got to provide mapping boundaries and some site restrictions and stuff like that, so that's what it would provide.
Okay, thank you. I think that concludes the discussion and questions on that one. So let's see if we can get a vote out of this. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, so the next one on the agenda is Admin Report 44/23, Security Camera Installation in Fire Hall Number 1. Director Norburn to report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to obtain council approval to install 2 video cameras in Fire Hall Number 1 as part of the Fire Hall renovation project. So the renovation of Fire Hall Number 1 will include a new entrance vestibule that will feature an elevator for improved accessibility to the main floor and the second floor for people who have mobility issues, in addition to providing stairwell access to the main floor, the second floor, and the basement. Access to the from the stairwell to these floors will be restricted by doors on each floor that can be opened manually or electronically by authorized personnel. Stairwells in buildings are often a problem area for criminal or nuisance activities because they're easily accessible to the public and can provide a space where people are out of sight. In order to ensure that the fire department personnel are able to monitor activity in the stairwell, it is recommended that 2 cameras be utilized to allow staff to confirm who is in the stairwell prior to permitting access to one of the floors or prior to securing the building in the event that the fire department personnel are required to leave to respond to an emergency or at the end of shift. In accordance with the city's video surveillance policy, all video cameras and systems installed on city property must comply with the policy and be approved by council. The objective of installing these proposed cameras is to deter and prevent criminal and nuisance activity in a potential problem area and enhance the safety of the building for both the public and fire department personnel. The proposed cameras will provide a live display only and will not record any activity in the areas being monitored, alleviating privacy concerns related to the retention of personal information. The recommendation is that council approve the installation of 2 cameras in the stairwell of Fire Hall Number 1 in accordance with the city's video surveillance policy in order to enable real-time monitoring of activity in the area without recording.
Okay, thank you. Let's get a motion on the floor first. You're moving, moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Runge. Any discussion? And just before we go on that, we're not doing this from a budget perspective, but from a surveillance policy perspective. Councillor Runge.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is to Director Norburn with regards to live display only. Is that a city policy? Like, I'd love to have a recording for maybe 12 hours. So if something happened, we could actually go back and see what happened.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that, but the decision was that all we really needed was that ability to monitor. So the fire department personnel just want to be, if somebody buzzes, and that they want to be let in, that they can see who it is before they let them in, and that they can keep an eye on that space. And in particular, their concern was fire alarm goes, they have to mount the trucks and evacuate the building quickly. They just want to make sure that they don't lock the building up and there's somebody in the stairwell, because they'll have the ability to press a button or whatever and lock all of the exterior doors, and they can all just take off in the fire truck and go. So that was the discussion we had. Obviously, by not having the recording, that alleviates all of those privacy issues that we have in the policy about retaining that information and how that information is stored and shared and so on. So we think it accomplishes the goal of what the fire department wanted the cameras for, without sort of infringing on people's personal information, I guess.
Thank you. All right, we do have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Final report of the evening is Admin Report 41/23, 3269 Hydraulic Road, works within a riparian area without permit. We're going to go to Director Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. And as you described, the subject is the disturbance and destruction of a designated riparian area at 3269 Quesnel Hydraulic Road. In the summer of last year, July, it came to staff's attention. The purpose is to advise council of this and let you know where we are with this process. The subject property was initially developed for the use of as a principal dwelling. A development permit was taken out at that time as in that first development. The new owners applied for a building permit to demolish the existing dwelling and to rebuild in the exact same location. It was stated in the building permit that all works would occur outside the 30-meter area, and therefore a development permit was not required. Following receiving the building permit, the proponents removed nearly all the vegetation and deposited gravel within the riparian area. The city has attempted to work with the proponents over the last 6 months, and the issue remains unresolved with an unsatisfactory result from the proponent. Yeah, there is some history there on that first application where we got to, and I'm not going to go over that in detail. I'm sure that you read that. There was some work that the city did to make sure that we worked with the proponent to, or the homeowner at that time, or the property owner at that time, to ensure that that riparian area was maintained and established. As the report states, as of 2018, it's very clear that that area was there. And in fact, the notice came to the city on the current development by way of a neighbor reporting that this was being removed at that time. The city, at that time, as we were notified by the neighboring property owners, we did inspect. We did find, yes, very clearly at that point, the vegetation had been removed, and in fact, on a subsequent attendance at the property, found that there was gravel trucks going to the property and depositing gravel loads of gravel in this area. A stop work order was placed on the property, and it was clearly communicated to the property owner that this work needed to cease, and we needed a sufficient riparian report to determine how remediation of this area was going to take place, and that a development permit now had to be obtained as they were doing works in this area. The proponent agreed that they would get right on getting a professional, and which they hired. They proceeded to do. We communicated with them over time, asking for the information, asking for the report. When we finally received the report, it was completely insufficient, and we let them know that it was not sufficient report. And that we would require them to submit either another report or have a peer review of the existing report. Peer review is a process that's taken often when it comes to registered professionals when they submit reports, to ensure that the report is to a standard that it ought to be. At this time, we're just asking that council direct staff to require the completion of a sensitive ecosystem development permit area for 3269 Quesnel Hydraulic Road to remediate works undertaken without permit and in breach of section 4.16.1 of the City of Quesnel zoning bylaw, and that council direct staff to obtain a full riparian area remediation plan for the site and obtain bonding for the completion of the works prior to the issuance of the occupancy for the building that's currently under construction.
Okay, thank you. So we do have a recommendation. Before we go to the recommendation, I have a couple of questions, and maybe some other councillors. With the recommendation, is there a time frame that this completion of this sensitive ecosystem development permit has to be completed by?
I would say before they want to move into their house at this point.
So, okay, so no occupancy until this has been complied with?
Until there's sufficient progress, anyway.
And the other part of my question is that if the services, and it appears that the services of a professional would be required, who pays for that?
The property owner?
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that. So now, any other questions from council? Okay, so do we have a mover for the recommendation?
Councillor Rudenberg has her hand up.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Councillor Rudenberg.
Sorry. Thank you. I was just going to move the recommendation.
Thank you very much. Okay, seconder, Councillor McKelvey. Any discussion? Calling the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That looks like it pretty well, no it doesn't. We got council information package, but I don't see that anyone has asked for anything from council information to come forward. We have the bylaws that were already dealt with under section K1 and K2. No new business. Information and question period. No changes to meeting schedule. No changes to committee appointments. Announcements and future events. I've got a couple here. And that is that we don't have a council meeting until March 28th. But there's no council meeting on March 21, which is unfortunate, because that's our 95th birthday on exactly that day. So we're going to have a joint advisory committee meeting on the 14th, and I'm giving you a heads up. I'm bringing birthday cake for that meeting for the city's 95th birthday. Another little announcement, and March is epilepsy month, I guess all over the place. But I want to say that Epilepsy Month in Quesnel is extra special because we've got a young lady in our community, Natasha Wasmith, who has been, this is the 10th year that Epilepsy Quesnel has been in existence. And I went onto the web today and picked up the poster for Epilepsy Awareness Month in Quesnel. And she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 businesses that are sponsoring events and doing cookies. She's even got, and this one stands out to me, the EQ silent auction, all of March at participating businesses. Just imagine a weekend and massage at the Cedar Stone Lodge Bed and Breakfast. So please get out and support Epilepsy Month. And finally, and most of council was there, was the yesterday's opening of the LHTAKO Quesnel 2024 BC Winter Games office downstairs in our Forestry Innovation Center. A very good day for Quesnel, and only 352 days to go. So thank you for that. I'll open the floor up to anyone else that might have a special event or something to promote. Come on, you guys. Am I the only one? Oh, Councillor Rudenberg.
No, Mayor.
Oh, you're all good. You're all good.
So you took my announcement.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
But what I want to say is thank you to council. That's okay. I just want to thank council for persevering with this whole piece around renaming the Winter Games. It finally came to fruition, as the mayor said yesterday. And I think that the feedback I've been getting on social media has been phenomenal. And I've got a couple people outside of our community wondering how we managed to do this. So kudos to us as a council for pushing back when they said it couldn't be done, because I think this is a precedent that will be repeated in the future. So thanks to everybody.
Well said, Councillor Rudenberg. And are you moving the motion to adjourn the meeting? Did I see that hand go up?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Councillor Rudenberg is moving adjournment. Where am I going? Oh, questions from the gallery. I'm sorry. Oh, RJ. Holy smokes. This is a first.
My name is R.J. Prue, and I do not have a complaint, but the audio from Councillor Rudenberg and Councillor Elliott were extremely hard to hear. I don't know if you good folks ever noticed that, but with this expensive technology, I expect to see them and to hear them. They're a very important councillor, and so this is my big complaint this time. Thank you very kindly for all what you guys do, and yes, you are a very important people to me, because you touch me almost on a daily basis. I just finished paying my tax, my water and all this stuff, and with pleasure, because we need the money to keep this business going. Sorry, I'm a little bit off the topic, but those are things that go through my mind a lot. And thank you very kindly for listening to me.
Thank you, RJ. And regarding the audio, I didn't want to bring it out at public meeting, but I do have a note here that we need to. I was having some difficulty, particularly with Councillor Rudenberg.
Oh, yes, yes.
But I can read lips very well, so.
The other thing is we did not see it, Councillor, the two councillor on our monitor over here either.
Yeah,
So,
we're going to work on that, because I couldn't see them some of the time, and we'll get the technology figured out. So
thank you very kindly.
Now I will enter. We have Councillor Rudenberg as the mover to adjourn, and Councillor Vic second. All in favor? Carried.